Good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Jason Barnett. I'm the Vice President of our Manufacturing and PLM Sales Groups. Along with me, I have Tim and Scott, as Lori mentioned, and they're managers of some of our key technical teams, and they're here to give you a couple of examples how we are and have helped our customers through their own transformation. So my goal today is to give our view of digital transformation, try to help you in justifying it, and then give you some insights into how to get started. So just a quick look at our agenda. I am going to talk about IMAGINiT for just a moment and give you some kind of background into why we would be talking to you about this topic. I'll give you our view of digital transformation, some of the elements that I can explicitly name, ways to measure. That's always a lot of interest is, you know, if we're going to do this, how do we measure? How do we make sure to justify an ROI? Tim and Scott will do some tech talks with you, and that'll be in terms of both a specific customer and then just customer experiences, how to get started, and then we'll open up the floor for questions and answers. So, but first, I wanted to let you know a little bit about our company and why we're here today talking to you about digital transformation. So RAM Worldwide is our corporate, and it's a family of technology companies, and essentially what we do, we acquire, we resell, and we create and implement technology for our clients to drive better both customer and employee outcomes. So we do have an extensive reach with over 40 offices in North America and over 400 employees, but you know, we have specialized sales teams that focus on industries. There's about 140 in that group, and then we've got about 120 subject matter experts with competency in all the major engineering disciplines that we tap into for support in these types of initiatives. So a simple look at our company to the right, working from the inside out. RAND's the parent company. Those of you that work with us, you'll see rand.com on our email address, and that comes from the parent. It's a public company. And then to the right, you'll see RandSim. Really, they're a simulation provider and consultancy. They do some really high-end, they have high-end software, and they do high-end consulting, solving some very complex problems. RAND 3D works with customers to document, facilitate, and train on their product lifecycle management solutions. And then Ascent has touched a lot of people out there. They write courseware for the major CAD and PLM vendors. And then, of course, we're talking to you from an IMAGINiT perspective today, and we're the largest and best Autodesk partner in North America. So then on the outside, you can see some of our strategic partnerships. And then we, what I don't have up there, we also have our own sets of brands as well, software that we create, like Productivity Now, Pulse, Clarity, and our Vault Utilities, among some others. So being a large technology system integrator is important, but here's some things that I think that make us unique, uniquely positioned to handle a digital transformation. So our sales and services teams, like I mentioned before, are focused into cross-functional groups such as manufacturing, data management, product lifecycle management, technical writing, building, construction, learning management. And then we have support, customer success, customer advocacy. We have a renewal team, all there to kind of back us up and keep us focused all on what's important and what we know the best. So we also have a business consulting and solution architecture group, which is just amazing. We can help companies design their system of the future. So a lot of brain power that goes into that. Scott is representing our engagement manager team. He's the manager of that group, but that's a group of folks that got pulled out of being longtime industry people, and now they help align technology and the appropriate resources in our family to help in these types of efforts that we're talking about here today. So, but beyond that, we've been doing this for over 30 years. I think between our dedicated teams, our implementation methodology called Take Aim, which is seen to the left on this slide, we really help our customers minimize the risk of executing complex technology projects. So if I'm to look at this slide, it's just, this is a view of how we see the relationship with our customers, and you know, it's one perspective, but if we can assume that because 92% of companies prioritize operational excellence, I'm just going to assume that you're here today to learn about how you can improve your business. So at the highest level, you know, this again is really how we view our customer relationships. So starting again in the middle, if operational excellence is the goal, because I can assume that, and we're going to leverage technology because we're a technology integrator, we have to think about how we have to think about technology adoption to make change. So how do we pick the right applications? How do we design or redesign any particular process, both to modernize it, but also to work with technology? And then how do we get the right people onboarded and on the bus? So truly what's important here, I think, is the outcomes in the white. So how do we give a better customer experience? Or more recently, I've really started talking about how do we give a better employee experience? How do we get better visibility into projects? How do we get products or projects to market faster? And how do we better utilize both our digital and physical assets? So, you know, if we do those things, then that results in, you know, growth and capacity. It results in the company, the product, or our projects innovating. It leads to a competitive advantage and agility and flexibility in the company. So digital transformation is just this we have fun conversations around this, sometimes uncomfortable conversations around what does it really mean? And I'm going to use this to kind of position how we are viewing ourselves in this world of DT. And there's a lot of things to consider. So you'll hear kind of the labels around this wheel being used in many of conversations around digital transformation, you know, things like artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things, product lifecycle management, cybersecurity, on and on. You can read them. But to position Rand and IMAGINiT, our strength is really helping customers develop the digital thread. And that's why I have it highlighted. So in other words, what we try to do is enable our customers to leverage the digital thread throughout many of these processes and drive towards a digital twin and that operational efficiency. So here's just a simple view of the digital thread. And on the left-hand side, you can see kind of the stages of a simple development process. And it's really simplified, but you know, I could apply that to a product development process. I could apply it to a capital delivery process, or I could apply it to, let's say, construction processes. It's really kind of generic. But if all those people have access to the data collected in the stages that are shared across these departments, then the stakeholders can participate consistently in the development process. So what this really does, it allows visibility into projects, it drives process efficiency and accuracy or quality across the enterprise. So the digital thread really allows participants to have early access to accurate information, allowing them to make informed decisions without the friction caused by what you would see with more of a manual, siloed, or serial process. So that's really kind of where our view is today. Shifting to more of a generic view, I'd just like to share, you know, this is one of my favorite definitions of digital transformation. And the reason why I like it so much is because it doesn't just talk about driving new value for your customer, but it's also for the employee as well. And here's why I think that's important. With the customer, you know, since we've been in the pandemic, it really helps with our existing customers try to fend off new market entrants. Because we've gone digital, the world's gotten a lot smaller, and it really it becomes a lot easier for competition to enter our market. and they're doing it faster than ever before. So also with new customers, it allows us to take advantage and gain market share from our slower paced competitors that are not changing. I mean, I think we have a good example of that with WireCrafters. They're a clear leader and they're putting space between their competition. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And finally, again, as I mentioned before, we've got to compete for employees. I don't know what it's like in your company, but getting the workforce built out has become as difficult as I've ever seen it in my 26-year career. So there's a new workforce upon us. They don't want to do repetitive tasks. They don't want to do data entry. They'll get frustrated and they'll leave. They'll just leave and go somewhere else. So, I would say that the employee market is forcing us all to change. And, it's a good thing because I think the new workforce really wants to have an impact on our business, and they want to have an impact often. They want to know that they're having an impact. So it takes good systems to do that. But what we see, I mean, many of us today still work in a messy, complicated environment. It can be slow and painful, and it just limits the ability to make the changes that we need to really thrive in a modern workplace. All right, so I just made this as just kind of more of a explicit list of elements that you might think about when going through a digital transformation, more so from our view, working with a lot of engineering, design, construction companies. But here are some of the key elements. So process management and process standardization. Kind of have to get the house in order and make sure everybody's on the same page, and we do that through collaborative process management. Digital threads to leverage data across the life cycle. It's really important to share information across the enterprise. Data management is a foundational key. This would include things like data standards, so putting data in so you know how to retrieve it back out, but also model standards so you can reuse information easily, and then the models are put in a way that, again, we can retrieve data back from them. Automation. We all have computer systems everywhere, and they're very good at automating common tasks. So the two main areas of opportunity that we see most often would be around that process management, but also design automation. Business systems integrations. We've been doing this for a long time. It can be a huge return on investment. Anytime you have data going from system to system, there's quality issues, but there's also a lot of wasted time. This is a place where there can be a huge return on investment. Platforms like Forge and Fusion 360 they'll continue to give us more opportunities to eliminate integrations and such. I mean, integrations have gotten so much easier over the past decade, and it'll continue to get better and better and better with these platforms as they're developed. Things like project management for managing product development processes, or like I said, capital delivery processes. It enables project commissioning, but really it comes down to how do you automate the aggregation of data so project management doesn't have to go and fight to get what they need and understand where a project is. So we really help automate a lot of things in that realm. Automatic reporting and dashboards comes along for the ride if we start going digital, and we've got a clean digital thread. And then, some more soft points I would say is formation of a digital team. So some people will change their job focus to support the digital efforts instead of chasing people and information around. It just you put effort into the system and let the system automate the movement of this data instead of people doing it. And then a digital transformation culture, it's just key. A culture change really helps bring people along with you. I'll talk a little bit more about this, but it's a big shift. This isn't like plugging in a software program. It's really a shift in mindset for a company. All right, so now ways to measure. I think people are really interested in this generally, and I'm going to try to give you some good ideas on ways that you can get started and, per the name of this event, make a case for digital transformation. So just some general categories here. So business outcomes are listed on the left. In the middle, you can see some ways you can remove some barriers to productivity. And then finally, reduce costs of doing business over on the right. But what does it really do? If I'm to boil it down to a few things, I'll say this. So one of the things it does is it removes waste, and I'm speaking of digitally, digitally changing your business. But it removes waste by allowing a user to enter information once, ideally at the first point where it's created or known, and then leveraging it throughout the entire life cycle of the product or project. What this does is it'll reduce things like time to market. It'll decrease non-value tasks like searching for the things you see in the middle of this slide. It enables smart decisions so people can give input and understand what's going on with any particular product or project, improving quality of what's delivered. And then it fosters company innovation. And really that allows, it's allowing employees to focus on what's important instead of, chasing things around, fire drills, chasing tail, however you want to say it. The second point I would make is that it automates laborious tasks, the things that I talked about the new workforce does not want to spend time on. So those are things like leveraging standard equipment models through, let's say, design automation, automatically rolling up bill of materials, integrating systems so we don't have to translate data from one system to another, enabling dashboards so we know things are at an instant, and efficiently capturing like as-built information. That's a really big deal when you talk about this, because change management becomes key to keeping all these systems and all this data up to date. A lot of places don't do a good job of that. We get to see it often, but that's one of the key sticking points is really change management, capturing the way things are actually built as opposed to the way they were designed. So the third point I would make is that a digital transformation provides a digital element to a product or project that can be leveraged as a value downstream. So imagine this, imagine that you have a smart digital data set that actually not only integrates into your system, but can be leveraged downstream in your customer's system or a supplier or any collaborator. So, I mean, this is really the case with a couple of our customers that are success stories of ours. WireCrafters, we're going to talk more about here in a bit, but advanced drainage systems, they produce drawings that can instantly be leveraged by their customers. It's awesome, and their customers as well. It rolls on. So the other thing that digital element can do is help deliver value-added services and products. So adding, we work with a large printer company. The printing business is a dying business. So what are they doing? They're adding value-added services to the office, leveraging sensors, IoT, the digital twin, pretty awesome stuff. So, and then it creates opportunities for downstream things like project commissioning, construction portals, fostering real-time collaboration. So, and then other things like maintenance, predictive monitoring, stuff like that. If you have a digital twin, you've got it hooked to IoT sensors, you can see what's going on. I know this motor's going out, something's overheating, etc. So those are just some of the things that it might do. One more way to look at how to measure. So we, along with our partners at Autodesk, have a really nice framework to help you view and measure a digital transformation. So I'm going to give you 3 examples here. First one, let's consider in the half circle in black, business growth as a value driver for a business. And then inside of that, let's say that we want to, the desired business outcome is improved sales cycle time. So what pressures would we be trying to address in this? So things like lack of bid reuse, slow time to quote, quote accuracy, lost sales. How would you measure something like that? So things like sales cycle time, year-over-year growth, the number of orders, and then what capabilities would we help you address that with? Well, that'd be things like data management, sales automation, design automation, product configuration. WireCrafters, you're going to see a perfect example of this type of business outcome. If I move to operational efficiency, let's consider increasing the manufacturing throughput. So out on the shop floor, what are the pressures that you might see out there? Production downtime, too much lead time, inability to meet demand, pressures on the production capacity, low yield, unplanned line stoppages, those kinds of things. And how would you measure improvements of those? So yield, so the percentage of good parts actually being produced, production output versus schedule, machine capacity or production capacity, the percentage of time it takes to produce a product. So those are the kinds of measures that we would look at in that particular business outcome. Capabilities we might apply: factory flow simulation, digital twin with machine monitoring, things like a digital part setup, machine simulation, manufacturing process automation, those types of things. And then finally, the third one, let's say enable innovation. This is a very common one. Let's consider improved collaboration as a business outcome. So what kinds of things would we see around pressures in that scenario? Low collaboration between functions, siloed work practices, duplication of work, poor on-time delivery, ways that we might measure that. Again, on-time delivery, the opposite of poor on-time delivery. Are we on time? The number of projects we can deliver, so the capacity to deliver projects, hours it takes per projects, time to market, how quickly do we get things from quote out to cash, those types of things are ways we would measure. And the capabilities that we would apply to improve in these areas would be design collaboration, change management as a core, data management as a core, new product introduction practices, project management. Again, I'm going to talk briefly about Owens Corning. I think this is an outstanding example of a company really enabling innovation through better collaboration. So these are all different outcomes that I have up here that I could drill down into with you if you want to learn more about how you might view these things, how you might apply capabilities to address them, and how you might measure those. So, reach out, be happy to explore these with you. All right, I have two more things, and then I'm going to turn it over to Tim. He's going to get into some more fun stuff and show you some real world examples. But the one he's going to walk through is WireCrafters. So, but let me just give you a little background on them first. So first of all, I'd just say the ability for companies to transform is really all the barriers. It used to just be really big companies that could do that, but now those barriers have really been knocked down. I mean, WireCrafters is not a huge company, but they've invested in a digital transformation pretty much front of the house to the back of the house to stay a market leader. And they're not a huge company, but they're a mighty one. They are so good at what they do. And for them, their pressure was they had to do several hundred quotes per week with a relatively small team. And years ago, we had built them a 2D AutoCAD based system. They outgrew it, so they needed a new way. Their goal was to produce high quality proposals and products while being able to account for many special site conditions. They go into buildings, so there's all kinds of weird stuff that happens. So, but their transformation really included standardized engineering tools. That's where we started for flexible 3D design. Fast web-based tools for their sales team. Automated manufacturing documentation, and then a web-based configuration and model viewer. So I think what's most impressive here as an example is that all these tools work together, leveraging the same information and standards. So they truly have put together a flow that's created a digital thread inside of their business. So that's resulted in their salespeople being able to create 2D or 3D drawings on their tablets or on their computers so their clients can review, edit, approve on the spot. It's also decreased design time in the engineering department by 40%. And then there's automatic drawings created, workshop instructions, it goes to ERP, all automatically, it's integrated. So all these things work together. So again, in the end, kind of some of the outcomes or the things that they wanted to be able to provide: free designs and layouts, great response time, high quality proposals, high quality customized products. They can do that. This is a company that's going to be a market leader for years and years and years to come. So just briefly on this, this is an excerpt from a digital transformation white paper that myself, Greg Dorman, and a few customers, including Owens Corning, helped write with Autodesk. And you know, it's a little different because Owens is a Fortune 500 company. They're really big, and they've got a large number of products and plants to manage. And you know, to manage all these assets, they've got a large engineering budget. So there's a lot of opportunity there. But their main goal was really to reduce the cost and improve the quality of being able to deliver really expensive capital assets to their factories around the globe. So, you know, what they're doing is developing and leveraging a digital thread to enable collaboration. You know, one of the outcomes I talked about before, across a complex system. And again, you know, they're trying to achieve that goal of delivering their assets at a lower cost and a higher quality. But you know, it's quite a journey with them. We've done a lot of great things, and really appreciate their partnership. So, all right, I am through my part here for now. I'll come back after Tim and Scott give you some example, and Scott's going to give you some insights on some projects. He's been involved with many projects across multiple industries. So, Tim, I'm gonna roll it over to you.
Great. Can you guys see my screen?
I'm looking here, Tim. Yes, I can see it.
Okay, great. So thanks, Jason. So again, my name is Tim Scott, and I'm our engineering manager of our desktop automation and process lifecycle management team. So I've got a team full of really talented people that really specialize in this digital transformation workflows that Jason just spent a few minutes here discussing. And what I'd like to do is kind of show you some of the solutions, or a particular solution that we came up and architected for one of our customers, WireCrafters, that Jason just introduced you to during his little talk. So like I said, my team, I have a team of specialists that actually sit down and listen to what your business issues are, right? And we sit down and strategize and actually come up with solutions on how to solve those business issues. Provide you a way to basically streamline your processes, introduce new processes, improve existing processes that you may have. And one of the challenges that we did this, or one of the companies we did this with, was WireCrafters, that had a few challenges that we implemented our architecture and our solution for. So the main issue with WireCrafters is that they were averaging, so they have a whole national network of sales people that they were going out and getting quotes or producing quotes around 50 quotes a day, right? So they got a national network of salespeople, regional salespeople that go out, and they were feeding back in the engineering department and the sales, you know, the local team there in Louisville, 50 orders a day. And the process that they would use to actually feed these orders in would be, they would hand sketch something out, either on a piece of paper, or they had a crude sales configurator that didn't have a lot of detail and didn't produce accurate quotes. You can imagine that the turnaround time that someone's going to give you a napkin sketch or a sketch on a piece of paper, and then you're the engineering department that would have to turn around and make some type of quote document, an AutoCAD drawing, for example, right? It's a very slow process, tedious process that you'd have to communicate with the salesperson to get what their thought processes were if they didn't understand what was in the hand sketch. It was really disjointed. So what we proposed to them was a solution, right, that kind of takes these processes and digitally transform them into connected systems. So the solution that we proposed to them and we actually wound up implementing was a process that we would take Inventor, for example, and actually start on the engineering end to solve the problem of actually the time it takes to actually create engineering drawings. There's another component that I failed to mention that I want to touch on too, is that not only did they create engineering documents, they created a bill of material, and they created this Excel spreadsheet that they called a takeoff. So this engineering, or this Excel spreadsheet, was produced by engineering as a manual process that someone would have to comb the AutoCAD drawing manually and pick out non-stock items to build these partitions and generate a bill of material of not only the stock items, but non-stock items and ship materials like extra bolts or extra hardware that someone who was actually going to fabricate this thing or install it would need in order to install it at a location. So our solution involved setting up an automated process inside Inventor. And matter of fact, Inventor, we're using a factory design component. So as you can see on the left-hand side of my screen, we have their product line that are actually built inside of Inventor factory design utilities. They created a library of their standard components. And basically, if you guys ever seen or used factory design, it's just a simple drag and drop method where I could drop different size partitions into a design, orientate them how I want, and then go ahead and put the next partition in, and they would automatically connect together based off of how I've got the system designed. And I've got a whole library full of different assets that I want to choose. Each one of the assets then, once it's placed, is configurable through a form, right? This whole process really down and quick and dirty, just drag and drop all the information necessary to build the component or any modifications that I'd want to modify the component. I can just fill out the form and hit OK and have the designs change on my screen. And then it was a simple process here where I could just click a create drawing button, click a face, and it would make a drawing for me. So we spent the first phase of this project basically building up one of their product lines. So just so that engineering could be quicker and create these takeoffs like I described, instead of making it manually, we actually have a button, which I'll show you here after my web configurator part of what I want to show you. It would automatically create this takeoff. So part of the way in the process of creating the takeoff too is not only did they create, someone manually created, they had another person that had to check it. So, a start from end to when something hit the manufacturing floor, once it hit engineering, a week, right? 5 business days was considered a quick turnaround. 50 orders a day, processing 1 package a week. You can see how that could be really affect lead times and be a really slow process. So again, we actually built the engineering front end up first. So consider that like the engine that we can use to produce packages. And we turned that 5-day process down to, at tops, it was a half a day. When something was created, drawing was produced, and you hit a button and engineering takeoff was created. The next step of our process was actually build a web tool that their national sales team now could use, and instead of making hand sketches and then coming back and manually entering in a quote inside their ERP system, we created a web-based tool where all you need is a login and you have a quoting tool. So I could come in here, start a quote, and it would go into a layout mode here where I've got tools to actually build a plan view of what my layout should look like, and being able to quickly modify it by clicking on different areas and adding on to my partitions, like add another partition, another door, or a wall. I've got ways to actually create standard configurations like box shapes, L shapes, right? Depending on how you want to create those different shapes. And then from the layout, I'm able to generate a bill of material based off of that layout that I placed. I'm able to download a quote. So based off the information, it quickly created this quote. It gives me a little snapshot of whatever the layout was. And then the ability to actually download what we call engineering data. So not only is this quote created inside this web system, it's actually integrated with their ERP system. So as they're entering this information, it goes into the ERP system. If that quote becomes an order, an engineer, right, can come to this tool and download the engineering data, which is just a text file. That's basically the recipe of whatever that item was when it was quoted. So from the Inventor standpoint, we built a little plugin inside of Inventor or I can import that file. So the layout is just a text file. It's the formula that'll quickly go ahead and just design and lay out and draw the partitions for me with whatever the design criteria was that was inputted from the quote to. And everyone knows that, you know, something that's quoted may change or might need to be revised a little bit. So we've got tools in here, like I showed you before, where I can come in here and quickly just edit. So let's, for example, change the width of the door. So instead of it being a 3-foot wide opening, we'll make it a 5-foot high opening. We may need to add another panel to the corner here for their design. And then that needs to be a custom. So basically when we drop these things in, we call these stock sizes. So it's something that they actually inventory and they store on the shelf. So any changes we make to the system, they consider that to be non-stock, and there's got to be some customizations made to it. And we want to keep track of those and add those to our takeoff sheet. So now that I've got my design pretty much completed, I can quickly create a drawing of it, pick a face that I want to use as my front view, and our automation actually goes out and creates a new an IDW with a customized bill of material of stock and non-stock components, an orientation or a plan view, an elevation view, an isometric view, all fully dimensioned and tagged, ballooned, if you will. And then we have the ability to come in and create some custom drawings. Like maybe we want to create a door schedule. So that'll automatically add a list or a schedule of all the doors in my drawing. I can create detail sheets of anything that's non-stock in my layout. I can create anything that's non-stock of my post, anything that's non-stock on my doors, right? Fully dimensioned layout, fully dimensioned, bills of material for non-stock and stock items. And then the real big improvement that we made too is this whole idea of creating this takeoff sheet. So with one click of the button, based off of all the metadata that we stored inside of our libraries and our system, we're able to extract that information. And they used to build this thing manually. Just picture this, right? So here's our bill of material with all the components necessary to build this layout. And like I said, with extra hardware or installation that may not even be in the model, but we've got actually have it configured so it shows up, and weights, quantities, group codes, right? All the information necessary for that packing list. We create a little routing sheet. So on the manufacturing floor, we can kind of estimate the amount of time it should take and what needs to be built for each one of these operations. A list of all the custom mesh sheet sizes that need to be cut for this layout. A list of all the custom posts, right, which need to be cut and drilled for this layout. All the structural steel shapes for each custom partition. So you see all the angles and what needs to be made for all the non-stock components, plus where their holes go and what their hole sizes should be. And then a bill of material for each non-stock panel, right? And then we basically create a little summary here, a saw sheet that has all the different things that need to be created that a person on the manufacturing floor is after they build these, they can just start put this out and make a check next as they complete things. All right, so all this used to be done manually. They used to have to check things after someone actually made this. A week, 5 business day turnaround. We basically, shut or trimmed that down to like a max. It would have been a 4-hour process. So the net of this, right, combining all those procedures and automating them all together, right? So that's the other key aspect, is that we tied all these areas together. They're experiencing a 40% decrease in the amount of time that engineering has to spend making these drawings. And the reason why it's 40% is, right, we've only got a certain product line automated. So part of our ongoing process with WireCrafters is that we're actually building more and more of their product line into the tool. So we're actually tracking of all the orders and jobs that are coming through engineering, how many that we can actually build with the product, and expanding the amount of projects that we can build for the product line that they're actually quoting. So it's an ongoing continual improvement process where we're increasing their productivity year over year, week over week, month over month. So I hope that was a good explanation of how we automated the digital transformation process for our customer WireCrafters. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Jason.
All right. Thank you, Tim. And I'm actually going to turn it over to Scott.
Great, thanks, Jason. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Scott Walsiger, and I run our engagement team at IMAGINiT. And I'm fortunate enough to be able to work in several different areas of our organization and cross-functional groups between our architecture, engineering, construction solutions, and our manufacturing teams. And Tim gave a great perspective of things that WireCrafters, and Jason did also as well, of WireCrafters and advanced drainage systems, of the sales to manufacturing processes that they were trying to digitize or create that digital thread. I'm going to focus more on the capital project side of the conversation. Is that, wherever these things are, items or materials are being manufactured, there's lots of things that go into the factories, and remodeling projects and maintenance of machines and reorganization of machines and work cells and all the things like that. I like to start with this slide a lot because it's really my concept of beginning with the end in mind, and it's how do we effectively manage that digital stream of data throughout the life cycle of a factory or a facility or a process. And this example here is a simple, pretty simple example, but it's profound in the way of how do I leverage the design data that whoever laid out this facility is for the operation side, and it's creating a simple link between some valves on this pallet system to sensors in the field. And you can do that in a lot of various ways. You can have a serial number or a barcode on that item and scan it and be able to connect that digital stream of data that's being collected by those sensors into a digital model of the real life facility. So, all owners get lots of data from engineering and construction companies that manufacture facilities or install equipment. Well, how do we leverage that data stream that they create in our operations side and the life cycle of that building? A lot of that starting with the end in mind is, what do I want to be able to see? What do I want to be able to connect? What's the use case for my team to be able to leverage that data? And if you take too much, it'll be very complicated, but simple examples like this can have immediate impacts on organizations and are really quite easy to do in modern technology that were quite difficult to do in the past. So Jason, if you go to the next slide, please. So the way that we look at this as an organization, as IMAGINiT, we take a look at all the different threads of data that come into create a model, in a sense. And if we look at a digital twin, the digital twin is representation of the physical world, but the data that encompasses a digital twin comes from all different types of systems throughout the organization. And how best to connect that data is a challenge without replicating the data between the systems. So we have all sorts of different tools and technologies to be able to map out these processes and be able to connect the data streams in a more efficient way than we had in the past. A lot of it is around the Autodesk platform that we deal with, but we also deal with other engineering providers or engineering services out there that aren't necessarily Autodesk related in the asset management world or the Maximo world or whatever the case may be, ERP systems. We need to figure out better ways to integrate the data in lieu of re-entering data or recreating data over and over again. So, looking at this picture, there's lots of different ways users want to be able to use systems. And I always say, you put yourself in the user's shoes, not in your shoes. So what you may want to provide somebody is you find valuable is maybe not valuable to that person that's wearing a set of gloves and can't navigate a computer on the factory floor. How do they need to be able to see the data? What's the most important data for them to be able to see? How do they monitor it? How do they interact with that system in the most efficient way possible and that's feasible? And through all of this data collection, it's really connecting these data streams so that everyone can manage the assets after the project is completed, after it's constructed, after it's moved, after anything happens. And if you talk to factory owners, and some of you are probably in this situation, one of the biggest problems they have is our factories change, the layouts change on a frequent basis, and our drawings aren't always up to date. Well, having processes in place to stage gate that so that if a change is done on the factory floor, those changes are captured and it's managed in a product lifecycle management style way in the future is really important in thinking about how that digital information goes together. Jason, if you go next slide, please. So there's two key concepts in a digital thread, and that example that I just shared here a second ago is, you design a system, you construct that system, then you create as-built drawings of that system because it's likely a little bit different or than it was designed. Then we need to figure out ways to connect that digital and physical world. So that's the sensor data that's being collected by some system to that engineering or as-built model that an engineering service provider provided, or a construction company or installation company provided, and then monitoring those systems and leveraging the data so that you can learn from history and learn where part failures are happening and provide insights into that data through other reporting systems like Power BI or other reporting systems that you want to connect to at the end of the day. But again, the point is connect the data in an easy way, make sure that it's streamlined so that the person that's collecting the data on the as-built side collects the sensor information, the serial number, barcode, whatever it is, QR code, and ties that back to the model so that we can monitor the progress or the usage of that piece of equipment. Next slide, Jason. So if you look at the digital twins, and this is digital threads, this is really the way that I like to look at it and the way that we look at it at IMAGINiT. It's hard to do everything at once. So if you do a digital thread from a product standpoint, like Tim's WireCrafters example, that would be, on the parts pieces side and assembly side of this this hierarchy. But those parts pieces and assembly are created or manufactured in a building or a factory somewhere. So there's hierarchies if you break down your systems within your organization to figure out which areas are going to bring your biggest value to your organization. In WireCrafters' case, it was figuring out ways to sell more of their products. In some other cases, and Corning's was an example Jason used earlier, and other factories, is maybe the business impact is greater in managing the data that's created through the construction in process a little bit better, in a way that they don't have to pay for an engineering service provider to come back in and resurvey the building to relay out a new line or do a equipment swap out. So how do we have accurate data for any remodels that we're doing, any retrofits that we're doing, any equipment swap out that we need to do, that we don't need to hire somebody to come back in and rescan the facility and then do engineering drawings? How can they just build those engineering drawings right from our as-built drawings and specify new equipment, simulate new processes related to that equipment so that we know that our factory floor is running at the best efficiency as possible. One thing that I want to just add, and I have it on the note on the bottom here, is a scan to us is not a digital twin. It's an input. It's a way to validate what is in the field or what was designed compared to what was installed. So oftentimes people use scans nowadays to, after a construction project is complete in the factory, scan the facility again, understand where the real world equipment was actually placed versus the design, make the changes to the digital model so that it matches up to the scan, and then again connect that back to any type of enterprise systems that need to be done at the end of the project. So streamline information, keep the digital thread of information that is moving from the construction installation process, design, construction to installation process, for the factory owners. So with that, I will pass it back over to Jason.
All right. Thank you, Scott. Appreciate it. Appreciate your time. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up here, and then we'll go to Q&A. So I think, again, if I'm assuming we're all here for a reason, we're all looking to change, but how do we get started? So, you know, one of the key points, I think, is culture and, you know, picking a reason, a value driver, a business outcome. And, you know, that could be something that focuses on quality of what we're delivering, customer orientation to whatever we're trying to provide them. Sustainability is a pretty hot topic. Work-life balance, again, going to the new workforce, it's becoming very important. I'd say the other point is that it requires a champion and an executive sponsor. And I think both are equally important because you kind of have to advertise and have somebody that's going to carry the torch internally. Then you have to have executive sponsorship if there's an investment made to say, hey, this is the new way. So, and we find when those things happen, you know, people look back that might have been pushing against the change, and people that don't like their cheese moved, when they look back, they say, wow, I don't know how we used to do it that way. You know, they like the new way, but they need guidance to get them to that point. So, and then like I talked about before, I always recommend forming a digital team to help plan and execute. And that allows multiple people to get involved. So it's not just the person or just the champion, but it's a group of people that are subject matter experts, but also can help get excitement up and again, kind of build that culture for change. So the other piece of it, I would say, is, you know, leveraging experts like us. You know, that's all we do. We're tech. I mean, we're a reseller, and we're really good at that. But we do a heck of a lot of technology implementation. So leverage people like us with the experience to help build that architecture and roadmap that might include things like standards for your data, how to store your data, your processes. Security, all things that we kind of look at. We can help you identify opportunities. So again, Tim showed you some automation, but you know, where are the areas where you're doing things many times, like WireCrafters is doing hundreds of quotes a week. Okay, well, how do we automate that and, you know, put it into a system so we do it once and then leverage it many times? You know, to Scott's point, we've got experience around that digital thread or digital stream and how you start implementing that throughout. This is a journey as well, and we can help shorten the time to value in the journey, but it's, you know, these are kind of bigger topics. So it really helps getting with somebody that knows technology implementation. So yeah, and then, you know, simpler things like configuring systems, and then just, you know, providing supervision on how to enable this technology throughout your business. So, you know, what I'm sharing with you on my screen is a process that we've developed for helping our customers transform. It's a little bit of our secret sauce. It's not super secret, but it is something that we've developed over time that works quite well if we find it. So. And then I'll leave you with this. For more information on this topic, our main enterprise architect, his name's Greg Dorman. He's recorded an on-demand session, and if you want to kind of dive deeper and get the view on how to get started, I highly recommend viewing his session. And I believe Lori actually pasted that in the chat window. So, but Greg's been an integral part in many of our successful technology projects, just like Tim and Scott have. So, so that should be in the chat window. There should be a link to the digital transformation white paper that I referenced with Owens Corning. So take a look at that. But I want to thank you all for attending the case for digital transformation. I hope it was helpful. It's a bit of a broad topic, but we try to boil it down and make it as simple as possible. But Lori, let's go ahead and open things up for questions.